On today's episode of the Stay-at-Home Nurse Podcast, we're going to look at 3 small career investments you can make instead of or before you make the big investment of another degree. Welcome to the Stay-at-Home Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Cooper Gillingham. For over 25 years, I've strived to use my nurse credentials to find work that fit my lifestyle. Whether it was raising my 4 children and 3 fur babies, traveling the world, or moving to Mexico and living on the Caribbean Sea. Sometimes I succeeded, and sometimes I failed, but I always learned from the experience. Now, I want to help you by sharing what worked and what didn't work. There are so many opportunities out there for nurses today. The Stay-at-Home Nurse Podcast will inspire and equip you to have a nursing career that is meaningful and supports your lifestyle. Now let's get started. On episode 32 of the Stay-at-Home Nurse Podcast, which we will link to in the show notes, we looked at things to do instead of going back to school for another degree. I've had some great feedback from that episode, so I wanted to expound on a few things. First of all, I want to clarify. I am not against going back to get another degree, but I do feel you should have a clear purpose for getting that degree. I've had way too many people come to me that have gone back to school to get another degree thinking that would solve their career problems, only to find out it did not. And now they were tens of thousands of dollars in debt and felt like they were stuck because they had to stay in the job to pay back the student loan. These 3 things we're going to discuss today will help you to make sure that you have a clear purpose for going back for a degree, and you may even find you don't actually need to go back for that degree. The first thing we're going to look at is joining a professional organization. Some of the professional organizations for nurses include the ANA, the American Nurses Association, and the NLN, the National League of Nurses. There are also professional organizations for specialty areas, such as AWON and the ENA, or Emergency Nurse Association. And for me, I'm a case manager, so I belong to the CMSA, or the Case Management Society of America. Joining a professional organization is a great start. There's very little to low cost to join the organization. There's more of a time commitment if you actually want to grow within that organization and use it to its fullest potential. Many of the local chapters are looking for people to serve on the board of directors, or chair a committee, or be a member of a committee. This is a great way for you to grow in your leadership role. It's great to put on your resume, and it's a great way to network with others in your profession. There is lots of room for advancement here within the national board and the national organization. So how do you get involved? First, do a quick Google search. Look for organizations that are in your geographical area in the specialty that you are currently working in or that you would like to work in. Did you know many of these organizations do not require you to actually be working currently in that profession, but they love to get people that are new to the profession or that want to move into this area? This is where you can find some great mentors. And because of COVID-19, even if you can't find one really close to you, many of the organizations are doing Zoom meetings now. This is a great way for you to check them out before you even join without leaving the comfort of your own home. You can join as many professional organizations as you like. You may want to join the ANA or the NLN, or both, along with an organization in your area of specialty or the area of specialty you'd like to move into next. So how does this help you to decide whether or not to go back for a degree? Many ways. By networking with the people in this organization, you can find out which degree would be most beneficial for where you want to move to in your career. You can network and talk to people, find out what degrees they have, what degrees they're looking for when hiring, and this gives you a really good idea if having that degree is important or whether serving on a committee is important. Would a certification be more beneficial for you? This is a great place to ask those types of questions. Okay, moving on. Number 2 is a certification. Again, if you belong to a professional organization, you can find out which certifications are the most coveted. You can also ask your employer what their preference is. both your current employer and if you're looking to change employers, start looking at job postings and see what certifications are required for the jobs that you would like to have. For example, in my area of case management, if you want to work from home, most of the companies want you to have your CCM certification, but a hospital may prefer certification through ANCC, the American Nurse Credentialing Center, especially if they're going for magnet status, since the American Nurse Credentialing Center also handles the magnet. Now let's stop and talk a minute about what exactly certification is. Certification is usually voluntary, but it can be required for employment or continued employment. It shows that a standard has been met. This is the standard set by the certification body. Different credentials and certification bodies have different standards. Basically, the easier it is to get the certification, the less prestigious it is. The harder the certification is to get, the more prestige and more weight it holds. The best certifications are independent of a specific class, course, or other education or training. In other words, you can't buy the credentials. You actually have to have the knowledge and experience to earn the credentials. To even be eligible to sit for the examination, you usually have to meet certain criteria, having worked for a specific amount of time and shown certain experience. Maybe it's hours that you've worked or time that you've worked in that area of specialty. Also, you'll need to take an examination and pass with a certain rate before you can get the right to put the credentials behind your name. Cost-wise, getting a certification, again, is much less costly than going back for another degree, but there are costs involved. There's usually an application process, and you'll probably need study materials to help you to make sure you pass the exam and actually study for these. Although they say that you can pass these by just having the experience, most people find that they actually do have to study to be able to pass the exam. Okay, moving on to number 3. Next, we're going to talk about assessment-based certificate programs. Now, I don't want you to confuse a certificate program with a certification. These are two separate things. A certificate program says that after you have completed a course of study, you have earned a certificate or a certificate of completion. Assessment-based certificate programs are educational or training programs with defined learning objectives and subsequent assessments of whether students achieve those objectives. Certificates are awarded to students who meet the performance, proficiency, or passing standard defined for the assessment. No specific acronyms or letters are awarded to individuals to use, only a certificate of completion. Who is this best for? This is best for a nurse who wants to move into a new area. So if you're new to working in a specialty, and you're having a little bit of trouble trying to learn everything about that specialty along with the policies and procedures and how things are done on that unit, you may want to consider taking some type of a course. For example, if you're having trouble and you're working in an ICU and this is new to you and you're having trouble with EKGs, you may want to take a separate course on EKG interpretation during your off hours. This will very much impress your bosses because they'll see that you've realized what your weaknesses are and that you are working to improve on those weaknesses. And you never know. Your employer may even offer to reimburse you for it. Okay, so where do you find these types of assessment-based certificate programs? You can find them at community colleges. You can also find them at hospitals. A lot of larger hospital systems will have classes and they will invite the public along with their employees. You can also find online classes. Online classes allow you to work around your own schedule, which is great. The only question you may have is how do you know if a class that you take online is legit? Just like anything else, do your homework. A very simple Google search for the class, the author of the class, the instructor of the class, or other information should yield you some results. If you see that the course creator or the person teaching the course has absolutely no background in that specialty, you may be a little more leery. Also, you can reach out and ask if they have some students that have taken the course that you can get testimonials from. Using myself as an example, if you Googled me, you would find pages of information about case management, about my courses, about my website, about articles that I've written, about places that I've spoken, so you can trust that I do have the knowledge on the subject and the ability to teach on the subject. Also, you can see that we've been around for a while. We're not fly-by-night. We're a company that has been around for a while, and we have a great reputation. We have a Facebook group with over 15,000 members that are case managers, so we have a great reputation, and we are very proud of our reputation. We would not do anything to jeopardize that reputation. So if you're considering taking an online course to learn more about a certain area of specialty, just consider doing a Google search, making sure that they're reputable. I would have to say the majority of the online courses out there that are done by nurses are reputable, but there are a couple out there that you do have to watch for. Always be leery of anybody who makes too many promises. If they're going to guarantee you a job or they're going to guarantee you that you can work from home, that's a big red flag. Nobody can guarantee you a job. How do they know that you are not a registered sex offender or that you don't have some kind of ding on your license? So if they're not looking at your qualifications beforehand, they're not asking you for a resume or to verify that you have a license, and they're promising that you're going to get a job as a nurse afterwards, I would be very leery of that. They can't guarantee you they're going to get you a job if they haven't even looked at your resume. Okay, I think that's a wrap on this week's episode. We looked at 3 nurse career investments to make before investing in another degree. The first was joining a professional organization. The second was certification. And the third was getting an assessment-based certificate. If you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode, please share it with them. We are available on all the major podcast players: Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, just to name a few. And did you know all of our episodes are on our website, thestayathomenurse.com? Go to thestayathomenurse.com, click on the podcast tab, and you'll find all of our past episodes right there. You'll also find show notes there with any links mentioned in an episode. And while you're there, you can sign up for our newsletter, where every Friday we send you an email reminding you that the new episode is out. That way you never miss an episode. Another way to never miss an episode is to make sure you hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player. Until next week, adios from beautiful Puerto Aventuras, Mexico.